for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, JJ.
Yes.
When I get to be, I don't know, I mean, I'm in my early 40s now. When I'm running gassers by myself as a guy in my 50s at the Bountiful High School field.
I am so impressed with this guy, man. It's
well,
just, that's what we all should be doing.
If I'm doing that, because this guy's by himself, he's running gassers on his own. If that's me in 10 years, I give you permission to show up to the field and shoot me.
Oh, jeez.
We'll be like, Alex, what's going on in your life right now? Running gassers.
You want me to murder you
because
you're fit?
I'm just saying, I will be in
That's
a weird.
All
right, just wing me then. Hit me in the kneecap with the.
That's a bold request.
Listen,
Alex.
I'm just saying.
I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life to put you out of your misery. I'm not Dr. Kevorkian here.
I'm just telling you, like, you couldn't have paid me enough money when I was in high school and in junior high. You know, when you're running all the gassers and you're doing all the stuff, you couldn't pay me enough money to not. I hated conditioning so much. I knew it was a part of what you had to do. When I was in wrestling, we had to do these things called buddy stairs.
Oh, no.
And buddy stairs were the guy in your weight class getting on your back and you carrying him upstairs.
You have to put him on your shoulder? Is that what they do?
Well, it was piggyback because
okay.
And my wrestling partner was Matt Garrett, and we were heavyweights, by the way.
Oh, no.
So I was 275. Matt was about probably 285, 290, but he's also 6'7".
Oh my gosh.
And he did not shower often.
A 6'7" wrestler that doesn't shower?
He did not shower often.
Oh, no.
So I'll tell you how little he showered at one point.
Oh.
The coach had to tell everybody that he had scabies. They're like, "Hey, Matt had scabies,
no.
You guys hit the showers, all right?"
He got his scabies all over you?
Luckily, I did not.
You did not contract
No,
scabies?
I showered enough. But again, you wouldn't catch me dead conditioning, and there's a guy out here conditioning on his own. I'm just saying that takes a lot of guts. Our program is brought to you by G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bar perfect for anybody who needs a quick, tasty, nutritious boost. Let's kick off the hour here with another one of our guests, Antonio Morales from The Athletic, talking college football and college football playoffs. Let's get to the cut right here.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And this portion of the show brought to you by Trajan Wealth for your retirement. Local trusted financial fiduciaries, 801-899-7600 or TrajanWealth.com. Antonio Morales from The Athletic joining us on the program. Antonio, thanks for being with us, man.
No problem. How's everything going, guys?
Oh, it's a beautiful day. We got high school football staring at us in just a few minutes here. That means college football is closely on its heels. And, of course, here locally, we cover Utah, we cover BYU, we cover Utah State. And it's an interesting year for us because the Big 12 has got new faces in it. What's your estimation of the Big 12 right now with the 16 members that it's got? New 4 members and then dropping Texas and Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, it should be a competitive league. I think Utah and Kansas State are kind of a tier above everybody else, but it seems like a pretty competitive league from top to bottom. No game will certainly be easy, and I just don't think there's a lot of separation there. Once you get past a couple of the schools at the top and maybe a couple of schools at the bottom, the middle seems pretty deep, with schools like West Virginia and UCF and Baylor and all those other programs, Arizona and all that stuff.
Is there a team besides Utah and Kansas? Is there a team that you think – Kansas State, as you mentioned, they're both in that upper tier. Is there a team in the Big 12 that you think could who's your surprise team, a team that could pull off a surprise and be the team that's not those two teams that makes it to the playoff?
I know a lot of people are talking about Iowa State. The quarterbacks they bring back. Matt Campbell's a good coach as well. It feels like he kind of missed that initial window of opportunity he had when his name was on the coaching search lists as an up and comer and everything like that. But he's kind of quietly rebounded from a couple of down years and done well, and they could be in good position to bounce back this year. I wrote about Kansas earlier in the week. I don't know how much of a surprise they are because they had a good year last year. They won 9 games, but they did that without Jalen Daniels for the most part. He only played 3 games last year, and he's a stud at quarterback. And like I wrote, their schedule sets up nicely. They don't have Utah. They don't have Oklahoma State. I believe they don't have Arizona. So they have a game at Kansas State, which will be tough, but they're playing some of the teams that are predicted to finish towards the bottom of the league. So I think their schedule sets up nicely as well. So those are the 2 that kind of stand out to me, and we'll see what Arizona does. They just lost. I think if Jed Fish would have stayed, Arizona probably would have been the favorite in the league maybe, and then now they're kind of like more of a dark horse just because they lost some guys at some critical spots. So I'm curious to see what they look like once the season starts.
So Kansas, of course, you listed as one of those teams, the sneaky contender in the Big 12. The Big 10, I was very concerned because you picked Iowa. I just don't know if a Kirk Ferentz team can put together enough points per game to be able to do it. Although, it's crazy because they'll win 8, 9, 10 games without scoring more than 15 points a game. So how is it that teams like Iowa, and what are some other teams that might sneak up on you? Because I think people see Missouri out of the SEC and they go, oh, yeah, they had a phenomenal year last year. They're a single-digit ranking in the AP polls to start things out here. What are some of the other surprise teams across the country that you think could sneak up and do some damage?
Yeah, I mentioned Iowa just because the schedule sets up so nice for them. They don't play Penn State. They don't play Michigan. They don't play USC. They have a game at Ohio State, but they miss Oregon as well. So, I mean, that's like 3 of the 4 heavy hitters in the Big Ten, and they don't have to play them. And last year the offense was horrible. They still won 10 games, and one of those games they probably should have. The Minnesota game they could have won if it wasn't for a penalty on that punt return. So the offense is a threat, makes them a threat to lose any game. I recognize that, but I mean, they've won a lot more than they've lost the past few years. And Missouri, they miss Texas, they miss Ole Miss, they miss LSU, they miss Georgia. They do have to play Alabama and at Texas A&M, but I think that's a favorable schedule for a team in the SEC, missing 4 of the top 5 or top 6 teams probably. So that one stands out as well. And NC State, they miss a lot of the teams in the ACC. They have to play Clemson, but they don't have Florida State. They don't get Miami. No Louisville, no Virginia Tech. And they won 9 games last year, so they won 9 games with a harder schedule last year. So they could be in position to break through this year. But these are all it's all trying to kind of pinpoint the surprises to see who could be in the mix that people aren't expecting right now.
A lot of people talk about the Big 12, and the first word that comes to mind is parity. But I noticed you talked about Utah and Kansas State being in their own tier in the conference. Why do you believe Utah and Kansas State are ahead of the rest of the crew in the Big 12?
Well, Utah's won the Pac-12 2 of the past 3 years. Obviously, they have those back-to-back titles. And they've beaten teams that have, on paper, a lot more talent than what they're going to be facing in the Big 12 at USC and Oregon. They gave Washington a really, really good game last year and took them down to the wire. And last year, they did that with a super banged-up team with all those injuries. They didn't have Cam Rising on the entire year. Didn't have Grant Keithy. Now those guys are back, and I think Utah's just equipped well and built well to compete for the league title just because they're a physical brand of football. It's not going to be a shock to their system when they go over there like it might be for Colorado or somebody else. So I just think they're built well for the league, and they probably have the most talent in the league. And we didn't get to see all of that last year just because of all those injuries. So I think they're just built well, and the roster's in better shape than probably anyone else in the league. And Kansas State, I think And I know everyone's making a big deal of Will Howard going to Ohio State and that being an upgrade for them, but I think a lot of people around the Kansas State program probably tell you they upgraded at quarterback too, letting Will Johnson go and taking every.
We're in that camp. We're in that camp. We saw Avery Johnson, what he could do, and I think that people saw the writing on the wall that Will Howard might not have necessarily been the starter. I mean, based off of this is why I don't know. I'm not as in love with Will Howard at Ohio State as I think a lot of folks are too. But Ohio State still is one of those teams that. Is brought up, basically them and Georgia. People kind of have crowned either one of those teams already. But what is a legitimate is there a shot that the ACC or the Big 12 could sneak in a second team in those leagues? Maybe one of those leagues sneak in a second team to the college football playoff, even though the college football playoff committee probably wouldn't want that. They want to sneak in as many SEC and Big 10 teams as possible.
I think it's going to be hard. We'll have to see. We talked about the parity of the Big 12. Is a second team? Is there going to be a team that goes 10-2, and then another second team that goes 10-2? It's just hard to kind of fathom right now, just because there's not a lot of separation between those schools, like I said, and the ACC. It's who do you really trust to go 10-2, or who do you really trust to get in that mix other than the champ of the league? Florida State, they still have questions. DJ Uiagalelei, we'll see how he does this year. It's his third school, and can he kind of make a leap, or are you going to trust Mario Cristobal at Miami to get in there and do it? We've seen him lose games for his teams in the Pac-12 and at Miami, and his Clemson rebound. So you have to trust two of those three teams to kind of make some noise or kind of break through in ways they haven't in the past year or two. So I'm kind of doubtful right now that we'll get a second team from either of those leagues, but. I wouldn't be surprised.
You look around the country, and I think a lot of people think that it's Georgia and Ohio State and everybody else. Would you believe with that? Do you go with that assessment, or do you think there's another team out there that can win a national championship?
I don't know if they will win the national championship, but I think Oregon can. I think their roster is set up really, really well. They obviously made a lot of portal additions this offseason, particularly on the defensive line. Guys like Derek Harmon from Michigan State to go along with Jordan Birch, who they already returned. They got some good players in the secondary like Jabbar Muhammad from Washington, obviously at quarterback Dylan Gabriel, and a receiver Evan Stewart. So they've really reloaded at some key spots, and obviously they recruit better than anybody else on the West Coast. So I think they have a top 5 roster in the sport, and I think Texas. They're up there. I think I would have put Texas in that mix until they started losing all their running backs over the past couple of weeks, and they have some big boys to replace in the interior of the defensive line. So I would have put them in the mix, but now I'm not so sure. And you guys have seen Kalen DeBoer and what he's done. I think him with that talent level at Alabama is going to be really intriguing. I think they're a threat too. He seems to get the most out of all of his teams, and he's a guy who just wins a lot of games no matter where he's at. So his coaching ability plus the talent ceiling at Alabama being higher than what he's ever worked with before, I think that'll make them a threat too.
If you had to pick a group of 5 team to make the playoff, who is that on August 23rd?
This is a tough one. I'm not super high on Boise as much as other people are. I know they made a little run at the end of the year, but that's usually been a 4 or 5 loss team over the past few years. So I think I'd have to go with Memphis. I don't know if Liberty's schedule is going to be good enough to get them in if they lose a game. And to me, that's one of the clear threats in the G5. So I think I'd have to go Memphis right now. And I don't think the AAC is that great. And I think Memphis has the schedule and the talent to do it. They have a tough non-conference game at Florida State. So we'll see what they prove and how competitive they are in that game. But I think they'll be the better team on paper against every other team on their schedule. So to me, they're the one that really stands out. Seth Hennigan at quarterback, and they seem to really find something last year, and I think that's the one that sticks out to me.
You've got a fun story up right now on The Athletic, a bandwagon fan's guide to the 2024 college football season. So if there's fans out there that are sick and tired of their team losing or whatever it is, they can pick a team this year to watch. Who are some of those teams that you would pick, if you could, to be on that bandwagon?
Nebraska would be one. I know people are like, that's a traditional power, even though they haven't been a power for like 20 years. But I think that would be one, just because they've had a couple of down years. They haven't made a bowl since 2017, so it's 2016. So it's been a minute. They have a nice young quarterback coming in, and Dylan Raiola, who is a 5-star quarterback. Matt Rule usually improves a lot in his second year, and I think people are kind of sleeping on that schedule too. It's entirely conceivable that they're 7-0 before they play Ohio State in the middle of the year. So they're one of the ones. I put Arizona on there just because it's been cool to kind of see them rise over the past year with Noah Fafita and Tedroy McMillan, and I'm a big believer in Brent Brennan. I spent a week with his San Jose State program last year and got to learn a lot about him and his staff, and really like what they did over there at San Jose State. So I'm high on him and at Arizona. And there's some other ones too, like a New Mexico State, who kind of had their program gutted after winning 10 games for the first time. One of the first time, only I think the second time in their program history, and their roster got gutted. So if you're feeling a little sympathetic, that's a bandwagon to hop onto. And so there's plenty of options out there.
Antonio Morales covers college football, and specifically you've covered USC for The Athletic, and we've also covered Ole Miss before in your career. And we, of course, have a name here locally in northern Utah that had a pretty darn good prep career and ended up going down there after being at USC, and Jackson Dart. How good can Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebels be this year? I mean, we've talked about them. They come up periodically as being a team that could be sneaky, but it's hard to be sneaky in the SEC against, the type of talent that league has. Yeah,
they can be really, really good. They added so much in the portal, like a Walter Nolan, a Juice Wells from South Carolina, and some other guys from across the league. I think they could be really, really good. And you look at the schedule, it's Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, South Carolina. They're going to get off to a good start. Just a matter of how they handle expectations. I think a couple of years ago they were 7-0, took a trip to LSU, and they got blown out. And Lane Kiffin started his name started being in the mix for other jobs, and then I think that became a distraction, and their season kind of fell apart. So it's kind of avoiding that stuff and seeing how Lane handles expectations is what I'm watching for them. But I think this is the most talented team they've had probably since 2015, when Hugh Freeze was there and they went to the Sugar Bowl, and they had Chad Kelly and Robert Kimdiche and Laramie Tunzel and all these former 5-stars on the team. So Lane has done a really good job of sustaining success there, which I think has been hard. I know that was an issue when I was there. They'd have really high highs and some really low lows, but he's won 10 games 2 of the past 3 seasons, and he's in position to make the playoff again. But we'll see what it's like when they face some of the elite teams. Last year they won 11 games, and they lost to Alabama and Georgia, and they lost by both games by double digits. So they've been the number 3 team in the SEC the past couple of years, but can they kind of elevate into maybe a top 2? And that's kind of a hard jump to make, but we'll see if they can do it this year.
Antonio Morales, you can see his byline at The Athletic, and covers college football. We're really looking forward to this season. We're looking forward to what a new 12-team college football playoff will bring us, as well as now all of the realignment being realized this year. So thanks for being with us. We'll chat with you again, Antonio.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Look forward to talking to you soon.
There you go. Man, I tell you what, the more we talk with these guys, the more excited I get about it. A year like this. And then I did have that moment where I went, how freaking hilarious would it be if New Mexico State got that G5 I mean, like, obviously
that would be a wild story.
Obviously that's some craziness.
But that's the fun of the college football playoff now.
Yeah, you don't know what it's going to be.
You get that group of 5.
Yeah,
you have
man.
no idea. It's wide open. I don't think there's a group of 5 team right now. You're like, oh yeah, that's the team.
Well,
They're a juggernaut. They're going to get that bid. There's just not one.
Well, people like to go, oh, Boise State. Why? Because it's been an easy pick for so long.
That's what I'm talking about. You just say Boise State because who else is it?
Right.
But there's any number like UTSA, Texas State, Memphis. He mentioned. It could be any of those teams. I mean, I don't know where Tulane's at. They've obviously been pretty good of late, but their coach leaves and goes.
They're
to
in
Houston.
New Orleans. If you're wondering where they're at,
that's where they're at. I get it. I think the group of 5 is wide open this year, and who wants it?
That was a very PK. That was a very PK comment of me. I apologize.
That was very PK of you.
Boy, PK rubs off on all of us, doesn't he? Without even knowing it.
We're in Bountiful right now.
And I just want to know where that team's going to be right now. Well, they're probably in Salt Lake. That's where they live. Come on. PK always follows us around. All right, wherever we go, even when he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a ton to get to still here. Guess what we have? We have that 134 teams ranked in tiers in college football. We also have our NFL Blitz coming up. So stay right here with us. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All the latest news and notes from the league and the locals in the NFL. JJ and Alex bring you the NFL Blitz on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Oh, yeah.
We challenged Alex, and he came through.
He freaking did it. And you know what? This isn't that yacht rocky stuff that I know you probably wanted.
That's what I really want.
But I'll tell you what. This gets you jamming on a Friday. That's a great pull, though. That's a great pull. Yeah. Some Doobie Brothers. The reason we brought up Doobie Brothers because we've been singing Doobie Brothers ever since we found out that we were giving away Doobie Brothers tickets next Wednesday for Win Ticket Wednesday. It's going to be tough to beat. So all next week, tune in for more Doobie Brothers hits across the station.
Maybe specifically Michael McDonald.
You're just in love with Michael McDonald.
If we don't play Yamo B there next week on the show, I quit. I'll walk out.
I want as much soft rock as I can get.
I'll throw a tantrum.
Like my dad, may he rest, always had his workbench had a radio on it, right? In the garage.
As any workbench.
Right, and more often than not, and it was the one that was beat up, had paint on it, and was always blinking 12 o'clock. And, but like, sometimes I'd be sitting in the house and be like, what the heck is that noise? And my dad would have forgotten to turn the radio off. It's just going in the garage, and it was on some it was always like, okay. It was like, hey Mandy, you came and you gave without. What does she say? I don't know. Without taking.
So I sent you away.
Oh Mandy.
So Barry Manilow.
I know, but my dad would have this soft hits on the radio. I was like, Dad, what is this station you listen to? He's like, it's good radio. It's not this hardcore stuff. You're listening to. I don't have to rock out. I'm like, Dad,
you're hardcore stuff.
You're giving yourself away here. I'm like, Dad, you were in the Marines. You played college football, and we're listening to Barry Manilow and the Doobie Brothers. Come on.
Do it.
He's like, I'll listen to whatever I want while I'm doing my woodworking. Get out of here. That music in the background, also another classic. It is, of course, that time of the day we get to roll out some of our best NFL Blitz stories. Kirk Herbstreit says Anthony Richardson may eventually be benched for Joe Flacco. Why on earth?
What?
How on earth could you predict something like that? Is he saying that so Herbstreit actually said, yeah, you know what? Anthony Richardson, he doesn't believe that he's got what it takes. Now, I was like that last year, but guess what? I kind of came around on Anthony Richardson as an athlete. And of all the guys, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, of all the guys, you're going to have Joe Flacco be the guy. Now, is it because he's the backup? Fine. Is it because he's available because he's sitting on his mom's couch? I know, but he's also 100 years old, and not like the Tom Brady 100 years old. He's like the regular kind,
not the healthy, vibrant.
He's the regular kind.
Yeah, Joe Flacco's like you probably need to think about retirement. Flacco.
Well, you got to think about how many head injuries we've had so far. So yeah,
you know what though? It's fair because Anthony Richardson got hurt last year. So not only could it be a performance thing, because we really haven't seen him for a full season, but the way he plays, he runs the ball a lot. He puts himself at risk. And you're the Colts. You got Joe Flacco on the bench. You probably feel pretty certain you're going to see Joe Flacco at some point this season. I hope that's wrong, because I'd love to see Anthony Richardson do well.
Right.
But we saw it last year. There's no reason why we wouldn't see it happen again.
So the Steelers have a real quandary going on right now, and that is they have no quarterbacks. You know why? Because they have two quarterbacks.
Right.
Neither Justin Fields nor my guy Russell Wilson have been
your guy,
super stellar.
My guy.
He was my guy.
Let's ride.
But neither of them have been super stellar in camp for the Steelers. Much to the chagrin of Mike Tomlin, who's not used to having down years, bad years, none of it. And so for me, it's really wild to see the Steelers having to go through this, because this is what happens. When you have a quarterback for 17 years who's your guy and you never have to worry about it, what a luxury, right? And then you have Justin Fields, who you don't know if he's going to be any good at all, in his career. And then you have Russell Wilson, who was decidedly good and then suddenly not. And so poor Mike Tomlin is just cussing his way through practices, I'm sure, at Steelers camp.
But I think the Steelers are a team that can go 10-7 without a quarterback.
Yeah, and you know what? The NFL's like that, right? You'll have that AFC North is interesting, because you could have the Bengals and the Browns both win 11 games, and the Steelers will be 8-8 going into that final week of the season, and people will look and go, yeah, but they're so bad. Look at where they're at in their division. You're going, this is just a franchise that's used to, and it's a head coach, Mike Tomlin, who's just used to winning. There, part of me goes, you know what? Mike Tomlin, by the way, how long has he coached at the Steelers?
Almost 20 years.
And
18?
He still looks like he might be 51 years old at this point.
I know, it's crazy.
So my hope is they struggle. Is it the Moras or the Rooneys who I can't remember which family's which?
Rooney's owned the Steelers.
The Rooneys are the
Moras
Steelers.
Were the Giants.
Yes, and they're intermingled also, those two families. So
16 seasons.
I'm gonna 16 freaking years. So here's what I'm anticipating. Mike Tomlin is going to get fired, even though I think he'd have to do a lot to get fired. He'll get fired in the next couple of years. Hold the phone so that my Seahawks can roll in and then make their future bright by hiring Mike Tomlin in Seattle. Let's
go. I see what you're doing there.
I want the Steelers. I wish them all the worst, okay? So that my Seahawks can be good in a couple of years. I'm relying on it. It's actually what I'm banking on, okay? It's what my children are banking on too, because I've made them Seahawks fans, and it's the last thing that they have to do. It's what they have to do.
The Chargers will win a Super Bowl before the Steelers fire Mike Tomlin.
All right. By the way, preseason finale for the Vikings this weekend. Jaron Hall, former BYU quarterback and a guy who is currently trying to make the roster for the Vikings, will make that first start in the preseason finale. That is what we call a tryout, JJ.
Yes. I hope he does well. We love Jaron, and it's a tough spot he was in. He got a little bit of a shot last year, but it was a weird situation.
Yeah.
And it didn't go as well as he had hoped. But here's a chance to kind of make a push to be the backup behind Sam Darnold this year, because J.J. McCarthy's out.
That's right.
So, I hate it that J.J. McCarthy had to go out for Jaron Hall to have some job security there, but next man up, and Jaron Hall benefits from it in this situation.
I feel so bad for these kickers. These specialists are out right now trying to kick in this wind.
Good luck tonight. Rest in peace, kickers.
I think Bountiful, look how many kickers there are. There's like 9 kickers for Bountiful. I think
never have too many.
I think the coaches right now are trying guys out in the wind. This is when they make their medal. You know what I mean? Like, show me what you're made of.
We're going to see a lot of onside kicks tonight.
Why are you trying stuff from the 42-yard line? That ball wasn't even close.
Oh, boy.
I mean, God bless him, but
not a good night if you need a game-winning field goal here in Utah.
Come on, Coach. All right. I did want to jump to this. I know it's the NFL Blitz, but I made a promise earlier in the show. I told everybody I wanted to get to these 134 teams and tiers. I mostly just want to hit the ridiculous tiers that they have, and also just the Big 12 teams that we're interested in, right? So very quickly here, it's time for some tiers. So you have top of the pack. Any guesses? I disagree with one of the 4 that they put out there. Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. I just don't buy in yet. to Sark's Longhorns.
If anyone can hype the Texas Longhorns for any reason, they will.
It's ESPN.
They can't help themselves.
I know. Tier 2 is the tier is called Wait, What's Alabama Doing Here? Tier.
Yeah.
Alabama, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Penn State. Who does not belong in that group? I'll say it
Penn
for
State.
You. Notre Dame.
Okay.
Freaking A. I can't stand those guys.
Why are they
man.
getting the benefit of the doubt? I know they have a lot of players back, but
they always do. Tier 3 is who needs a quarterback anyway? Clemson, Florida State, LSU, and Michigan. And you know what? Every one of those teams. Although Garrett Nussmeier, I don't know.
Unproven though.
Yeah, but that's a guy that I think is going to be successful.
He's got the genes.
Tier 4 is playoff berth or 7-5. Could both happen. Is equally possible. That's what the tier is. I don't believe that about some of these teams. I do about Arizona. Arizona's on the list. Kansas State's on the list. Missouri's on the list. Oklahoma's on the list. Tennessee's on the list. And your Utah Utes are on the list. How is Utah not in a tier higher than this?
I just don't
4.
think people are comfortable putting them in the tiers with the Blue Bloods.
Well, the tier 3, the problem is the tier 3.
Utah's better than Michigan. Take it to the bank.
Well, not just that. Tier 3 is called Who Needs a Quarterback. And so they had to pick teams in tier 3 that are high-profile teams that don't have quarterbacks. And Utah's a high-profile team. They have a quarterback, so they couldn't put them in tier 2 according to this.
Right.
And they didn't want to put them in tier 3 because that was about having bad quarterbacks and still being good. So they're in tier 4. Tier 5, it says, no, seriously, this is our year. Miami, NC State, Nebraska, Texas A&M, USC, all teams that I think fall into the category of because if the tier is called, no, seriously, this is our year, it's a bunch of teams that get way too much respect when they don't really deserve it, although NC State doesn't necessarily fall into that category. But USC, Nebraska, Miami, all, and Texas A&M especially in that category. Age before beauty is tier 6. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, SMU, and Rutgers. So a couple teams that are considered to be pretty decent teams in the Big 12 in that one. Tier 7 is upgraded from stable to frisky. Louisville, Kansas, Syracuse, Texas Tech, West Virginia, and UCF. So 2 Big 12 teams in there. Tier 8 is in need of a vibe shift. No teams that you know or follow are in this group, but Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, Iowa, Maryland. The only Big 12 team in this one is TCU. I'm still searching for this BYU tier. Haven't found them yet since.
You can speed down to tier 12.
Okay, so tier 9 is someone outside the Power 4 has to make the playoff. So they listed teams like App State, Boise, Liberty, Memphis, Miami of Ohio, and South Florida. I will shift all the way down to tier 12, although there is a tier 11A and a tier 11B, so this is really actually tier 13. 12B is where BYU finds itself. Tier 12B, we're not going to fire our coach, is the tier that they're in. So quit asking.
That's great.
BYU, Cincinnati, Virginia, and Wake Forest. Although, why wouldn't Cincinnati at least look at Scott Satterfield a little bit sideways if he struggles this year?
I think they might. I mean, obviously he struggled at Louisville, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's an interesting tier, and I think that applies to all of those teams.
All right.
Well, BYU, you know what? BYU's not going to do that, but you start to – if BYU had a season that some think they could, well, then you have to start – that comes into the mind, right? That's why this year is so important for BYU to get to that bowl game and get a winning season. It's important for that entire coaching staff to take another step forward in the league. How about Utah State? Want to give me that one? I'll throw that one out real quick.
Tell me what tier that is.
They're in tier 18.
Oh, no.
Which is called somewhere between mediocre and meh. They're among 9 teams that include Central Michigan, Hawaii. Utah State's going to be better than Hawaii.
Yeah, but
Navy, New Mexico State, Rice, Tulsa, UAB, and Western Michigan.
I will take – what was the tier called? Mediocre, bordering what?
Somewhere between mediocre and meh.
Yeah, and honestly, Aggie fans, I think that you should anticipate kind of a 7-5 type year. I hope that they do have it.
That'd be a great year.
7-5 would, I think, be enough to at least make it uncomfortable for Diana Sabo to fire Nate Dreiling.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Not fire him, but take the interim tag off.
7-5 with that schedule and the circumstances they're in would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, you hosed him, so give him a shot. All right? All right, let's take the break here. We've got tons going on. We've got one more segment for this hour. It's our best and worst coming up next. Stay right here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Wrapping up the hour with our picks for the best and worst moments on today's show. As JJ and Alex want to hear your best and worst of the day.
All right, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5 BKSL Sports Zone. Forgive us for the windiness. I will not apologize for being out and about, though, on a Friday.
Absolutely not. But it is blustery out here. My goodness.
Those type of words you're going to use on the TV.
It's not a night for kickers. Let me just say that. And quarterbacks might struggle with this too.
It is.
Get that run game going tonight,
guys. It's a night for kickers that way.
Run the rock.
Kick the ball that way, and you should have a 60-yarder. Everybody will get a 60-yarder.
That's going to end up in Weber County if you kick it in that wind.
You're kicking
Oof.
it north?
Oof.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But, yes, Farmington and Bountiful have taken the field and for some warm-ups here. Farmington in the all-teal and Bountiful in the all-reds. So, not
That's
bad.
a nice color scheme going on.
It's good. It's good to have them both out there. And oh, yeah, look at that. The Game Night Live logo up on the big old screen over there.
Very cool.
You guys are famous, man. Will you sign my stuff afterwards?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I'm
going full LeBron on you. Not going to do it.
Just sign my neck, all right? Big fan. Big fan of yours. And then I'm going to get it tattooed. Be like, yeah, this is Jeremiah Jensen's autograph.
You got to remove that Pac-12 tattoo first.
I got to get the Pac-12. I'm going to put that Big 12 XII on the old chest.
There you
Let's go.
Now you're talking.
All right, best and worst goes like this. We roll out a scenario for us, or we roll out a scenario, and it's either the best thing or the worst thing we saw for today, okay? By the way, best and worst brought to you by an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram. Visit your Doug Smith dealerships in American Fork and Spanish Fork. Go check it out for yourself. Great service starts with know-how, and nobody knows like Doug, the Doug Smith dealerships. All right, the best was, we brought it up earlier in the show, Corner Canyon upset the third-ranked team in the country, the IMG Academy fill-in-the-blank mascot. Don't want to spend too much time on that because it's a congratulatory thing. We already did it. We told you, hey.
Helaman Kasuga, 330 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 of those touchdowns by Jerome Miles, the 5-star receiver who Utah desperately wants to get.
Is Helaman Kasuga, is he a 4-star guy?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
And who's on his radar?
BYU and Utah are in his final 8. Oh, boy. It's going to be a battle.
I love Final 8. The kids are
know.
I've narrowed it
He's
down.
only a junior.
I've narrowed it down to 14 teams.
He's a junior.
Get out of here. I know, but they can get a guy to commit right now.
They sure could.
Like,
and I think BYU would love to get Helaman Kasuga.
My heavens.
That would change their program.
Absolutely. And then the worst of the day, we've got an audio clip to play for you. I know it's taking this long, but we've just been beating up on the guy all day, and I just didn't want to do it too much. But here was Gordon Hayward. You want to take a listen to this?
It's hard to look back and say, like, what if? Ultimately, I think, and I've said this before, like all 3 choices were really good choices. I think really good, well-run organizations, all 3 at the time, extremely well coached. It was really hard to make a decision, to choose. And I was torn up until the last minute that I made up my mind. And, ultimately it was something where I felt like Brad was one of the biggest reasons as to why I left. I mean, Brad was the first coach to kind of tell me like he thought I had a chance to play in the NBA.
What about the guys at Utah that made you an all-star?
Look, I had no problem with him leaving. I had a problem with him
Ghosting?
making people think that he was going to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really set back the organization. And fortunately, they were blessed with getting Donovan Mitchell through the draft of that trade with the Nuggets. But at that point, between the draft and Gordon leaving, actually it happened reverse, right? Donovan was taken first, and then they drafted Gordon. But everything was planned around Gordon, and they were going to give him max money, and they just came off a playoff victory. And for him to leave them in a lurch and do that, and the way he did, he knew. I don't believe he's being sincere. I don't buy that he waited till the last minute to make the decision.
It was so
it was
close
Brad
till the
Stevens.
very
Like
end.
Brad Stevens was the coach at Boston. You didn't think about that. We all knew that was a thing.
It was so
and we
close.
all would have totally understood. It's like if you would have told the Jazz organization, even help him get a sign and trade. Like just crazy how that all played out. And I don't like. I wish Gordon well, but I don't like the revisionist history he's trying to pull there. I mean, we all know how it went down.
What do you wish him well in?
In life.
Okay. Next time he goes to
League of Legends.
Next time he goes to Zupas.
Good luck in Worlds of Warcraft or whatever you're going to do for the rest of your career.
How much he played video games was way too much on the radar.
He had a lot of downtime. How about that?
All right. JJ, fun times. We'll take the break here. We've got more to go around the corner, so stay right here with us. 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.